This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
Questions orales, oral questions. L'honorable.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Honorable Chef de l'Opposition.
Common sense conservatives will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. This Prime Minister is not worth the cost. Indeed, his carbon tax, which the Parliamentary Budget Officer has proven costs 60% of Canadians more than they get back in rebates, is now opposed by 70% of Canadians. Everybody understands that the tax is driving people to the food bank. That's why 6 premiers, including the Liberal Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, have asked for a meeting. Will he agree to a televised carbon tax conference if he's so sure of himself on this issue?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Parliamentary Budget Officer has confirmed that 8 out of 10 families across the country get more money with the Canada Carbon Rebate attached to the price on pollution than it costs them. That's $1,800 arriving for a family of 4 in Alberta. It's thousands of dollars right across the country. These are things that are helping people with the high cost of living and groceries at the same time as we fight climate change. But, Mr. Speaker, what would be also helpful is if we were able to deliver the doubling of the rural top-up to put hundreds of dollars in the pockets of Canadians, but the Conservative Party is blocking the legislation to double the rural top-up.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, that is mathematically impossible, given that the NDP Liberal government has a combined majority and can pass anything it wants, which is exactly why we're in such a mess today as a country. After 8 years, this NDP Liberal Prime Minister is not worth the cost, and that's why the Parliamentary Budget Officer confirms 60% of Canadians are paying more in carbon taxes than getting back in rebates. But why doesn't the Prime Minister, if he believes the contrary, why doesn't he have the courage to sit down in a televised and open forum and have a carbon tax conference with the premiers?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We did sit down with the premiers 8 years ago and established the Pan-Canadian Framework on Climate Change that both puts a price on pollution and puts more money back in the pockets out of 8 of 10 Canadian families in the jurisdictions where the federal backstop applies. That is a way of both fighting climate change and helping with affordability. Now, not only are the Conservative Party counting on taking away those Canada Carbon Rebate checks, they're arriving this coming Monday on April 15th. People will see in their bank accounts the Canada Carbon Rebate that puts more money in their pockets ahead of the costs associated with fighting climate.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he met the premiers in 2016. Since that time, he's broken the promise he made them. He said the tax would only go up to 11 cents a litre. Now, he admits it will go up to 61 cents a litre. He said the tax would make people better off. Now we have the Parliamentary Budget Officer's report, which confirms 60% of Canadians pay more than they get back. The Prime Minister said, and I quote in 2015, "Canadians need a PM who will meet with the premiers." What happened?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
While the Conservative leader continues with his misinformation and disinformation, the reality is the Parliamentary Budget Officer said that 8 out of 10 Canadians do better with our price on pollution and the Canada Carbon Rebate. But speaking of misinformation and disinformation, any responsible leader that receives an endorsement and support from proven conspiracy theorist and liar Alex Jones would have immediately denounced that. But that's not what the Leader of the Opposition did. He did absolutely nothing because those kinds of endorsements fit within his political strategy.
Alors, l'Honourable Chef de l'Opposition.
Speaker, the incoming leader of the Liberal Party has just given a speech and given advice to his soon-to-be predecessor. He said that he agrees, this is Mark Carney, says he agrees that there should be a carbon tax conference where the premiers can come together and share their concerns about the Prime Minister raising the cost of living and breaking the back of Canadians. Will the Prime Minister won't listen to me, he won't listen to the Liberal Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, will he at least listen to his successor and meet the premiers on the carbon tax?
The Honourable Minister for Energy and Natural Resources. Order. The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, it is important for Canadians who are watching this debate to be careful about the misinformation being spewed by the Leader of the Opposition. It is important for a responsible government in this country to have a plan for addressing climate change and do so in a manner that enhances and addresses affordability concerns. That is exactly what the price on pollution does. 8 out of 10 Canadian families get more money back. 200 economists across the country agree with us. It is such a shame that we have a bunch of climate deniers over there who have no plan for the environment and no plan for the economy.
I ask all members, please, to only take the floor when they're recognized by the Speaker. I'll recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Mark Carney, who is the next Liberal leader, is a fierce supporter of the carbon tax. He's been called Carbon Tax Carney in the past, and he is willing at least to defend his carbon tax views in front of the premiers. The Prime Minister is not. He's running for cover and hiding from Canadians,
he's gone.
refusing to defend his own policy decisions. If the Prime Minister is really so proud of his plan to hike the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre, why won't he listen to Mark Carney and have a big, open, televised carbon tax conference?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's very interesting that the Leader of the Opposition seems so fond of Mark Carney these days, who actually, as you say, does believe in a price on pollution. Perhaps the Leader of the Opposition should listen to him. But it is important with respect to the premiers to know that the premiers have every right to submit a plan that actually meets the federal benchmark and put in place their own price on pollution. That is something that British Columbia has done. That is something that Quebec has done. Mr. Speaker, Premier Moe was actually here recently and testified before the committee. And what Premier Moe said is he looked at alternatives to the price on pollution. He found every one of them to be too expensive. This from a guy who has no climate plan,
The Honourable Member from Thornhill.
Last week, the Prime Minister increased the carbon tax by 23% on Canadians, on gas, on groceries, on home heating. He's doubling down and defying 70% of Canadians and 8 premiers who want him to axe the tax. 6 of those premiers wrote the Prime Minister asking for a meeting to talk about his punishing carbon tax. Instead, the Prime Minister just shot down the idea because they already had a meeting 8 years ago. Can the Prime Minister tell us how many premiers he met in 2016 that are still in power today?
The Honourable Minister for Families and Social Development.
Mr. Speaker, actions speak more than words. Our actions on this side of the House, over 750,000